You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey guys, welcome back to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. I'm your host, Steve Adams, also known as Mighty Blue. I'm going to start this week with an apology. This is not the show I was hoping to put out. The sound is inconsistent and you may have to adjust your volume from time to time, so really I'm sorry about that. Also, both recordings were marred by technical difficulties, the like of which I've rarely had to encounter. So, for example, our main guest interview starts after about a couple of minutes of our conversation. I have no idea why. Then in the second interview, my guest appears to just disappear. I mean, he didn't, and he carried on talking, but he didn't carry on recording him. I don't know what happened there. I've tried to manipulate stuff, but I'm afraid it isn't as good as I'd like. Add to this the fact that my partner, Dana, had to be admitted to hospital last night, and I've had to put the show together between a couple of trips to the hospital and back, which is about 10 miles away. Anyway, it's been a day, let me tell you. So forgive me. Today, we have a couple on the show who have hiked around 30,000 miles together. McGloin and Darrell Johnson have kind of specialised in yo-yo thru-hikes, with Olive having yo-yo'd the Triple Crown, while Darrell had to leave one of those attempts through injury. The two of them will be on shortly. Then we catch up with the first person to finish in the Mighty Blue class of 2023 as a thru-hiker, as Mark Carpenter reflects upon his adventure with the benefit of a couple of months at home. As you know, there's going to be no reading until I return from the UK in June, so we'll crack on and introduce you all to Olive and Darrell. As I say, the recording of the first couple of minutes just seemed to go awry, but I think you'll soon get into it. Here they are. So who was the instigator of that? Was it you, Darrell, or was it you, Olive?
It was definitely Olive. I'm the couch potato who tags along. You're
not much of a couch potato, considering what you've done.
It is Olive's enthusiasm, and you see her hiking, and she blossoms, and the spark in her eye, and that's her natural environment, and just to be part of that, it's just a wonderful thing. And when I'm hiking, I'm a nicer person. I'm a better person. I think I've heard that from other people, other hikers. So it was.
Hang on. That's not a very nice thing to say to anybody. When you're hiking, you're a better person.
No, they admit it, and I'm admitting it.
Oh, right,
I'm a nicer person. Yeah,
right.
I think it's just that stripped down. So all you have to worry about is you're immersed in this beauty. And you've got one focus. In normal day-to-day life, we've got so many decisions to make. So many things are not in your control. But when you're hiking, it's down to you.
I've always thought that it's less options. It's so much nicer.
Options.
Much nicer in life. You know, I look around me now. I've got 3 different bloody coffee machines, literally in my house. One in this room and 2 in the other room. I've had a coffee from each of them today, and I have no idea why I got 3 of them. It's one of those things you kind of wonder why we have so many options. So
you walk to a supermarket and you look around and you say, if there was only 2 options, that's easy. It's that one or that one.
Yeah.
So when you're hiking, it's how far you're going, when you're going to have some food, and that's about it.
To me, it's a bit like buying a mobile phone. You walk into a shop, I get turned off straight away. There's so many damn choices, even within just an iPhone. So it just drives me crazy. And how long has you been hiking long trails at this point when you decided to do this big mammoth adventure?
Well, we'd hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2005 and then done a number of smaller hikes, a couple of Caminos. But really, when we finished the Appalachian Trail in August 2005, we were already looking at the Pacific Crest Trail because so many people had talked about it while we were on the AT. So that was in the back of our minds all the time, is when are we going to get to do this? You know, should we do it sooner or later? And I think that was the impetus to us to try and figure out how and when we could do it. And we kept putting in leave for middle part of April every year, just in case they said yes, so that we knew
All right.
that was the time, and we would have what was deemed back then to be the perfect time. Obviously, with climate change and with fires and everything going on now,
Sure.
I'm not sure. It's not very easy for most people to do a through hike one direction either way. I think the way to do it now is possibly lots of flipping. You know, if you want to do a whole
Definitely.
hike in one season, that's where we are, I think.
I think actually that the day is coming when people are not going to be able to do a complete end-to-end through hike, which is sad, obviously. And so that's why if you're going to want to do the PCT, do it sooner rather than later, because this ain't getting any better, is it? It appears to be getting worse the whole time. And one thing you said, it's in my notes, and I wrote these down some time ago, so I'm not quite sure what it meant at the time. You said you started as a couple, so you started walking together, but you walk in sync. What does that mean? I know what in sync means generally, but what does that mean in your case for your hiking?
Well, we're similar size, but our legs and stride are so similar that you just fall, because we've hiked so many times together, and it's like a metronome. Your feet end up matching your partner because we're so similar. And it's very noticeable when you go on the AT and you go across quite a few bridges, and that kind of amplifies when you hit the ground, and it doesn't go out of sync, it's in sync, and it amplifies. So
that's a bit spooky.
Spooky, yeah, but you'd hear that click clack because we use hiking poles, and even the hiking poles will go in sync.
Is one of you the leader though, or does it happen whoever leads?
We tend to swap over during the day. It depends on there'd be an element of pacemaking. Darrell would start off at the beginning of the day possibly, and if I thought we needed to make certain miles or to get to a certain place in the evening, maybe later on in the day, I might just pull in front and start, upping the pace a little bit. But certainly,
Does he follow though?
Yeah,
the same pace.
He's usually there. And just to go back to your previous point about how we hike, other people have mentioned that to us when we are somewhere where we're actually walking side by side or behind us, and another hiker has joined us, and is, we're chatting for a while, and they will say, "Oh my God, I can't believe you guys walk in sync." I said, well, it's not something we actually try to do. It's obviously just, happens.
Do either of you hike by yourself ever?
Well, I have when
I know you did. Yes,
Chimp has
sorry.
had
Yes,
a couple of injuries.
And how different was that for you then?
Well, it's very different because he's not there for me to turn around or in front of me to have a discussion with, or especially when you see something and you go, "Oh my God, did you see that?" Or so yeah, it is. It is a completely different experience when you are hiking by yourself. And I know that on occasions, not that I have ever really felt scared while I've been hiking, either of us together or by myself. It's usually the people that you come across that you'd be more scared about. And on a couple of occasions, I did meet one or two people, and I would always probably tell them that, "Oh yeah, I'm hiking with somebody. He's just having a comfort break. You might see him on the trail back there, or maybe not. So just on that occasion where the one or time you see somebody and think, "I'm not really sure about you." It has only happened on all of the 30,000 plus miles. I think we've probably only met 2 or 3 people that I would not be happy to camp near. In fact, I think we hiked on at one point just because we weren't comfortable.
In normal life in the city, you meet those about 3 or 4 of those a day, don't you? So it does speak to how nice it is, how nice people are on the trail. And we're going to talk about the idea of the yo-yo in a minute, but you mentioned that you hiked the AT in 2005. What actually got that going? Because you live in the UK, it's not normally a natural thing for people to come across the US to do that. What sparked in your mind the idea of doing the Appalachian Trail in the first place?
The company we worked for at the time, back maybe 2 years before then, or maybe 3 years, I can't remember the exact dates now, but they thought they had too much staff. So they were actually trying to encourage people to take a year off.
Oh, wow.
So as both myself and Darrell had gone from school and college while working straight into jobs, we were like, well, we never had those gap years that seems to be quite popular these days. So we thought, well, could we do this? Have a year off? We've got a little bit of money now. We don't have to always, be staying in the lowest of the low hostels where you see people like that doing, and we can do, spend some money doing some of these things. So we sat and thought about it very briefly and then put our application in, and then we thought about what we would do with it.
Right.
And it was actually Darrell who came up with the Appalachian Trail idea,
Right.
I believe.
Right. So where did that come from for you then, Darrell?
I don't know. I think I came across a book, or I think it was in Waterstones or something. And I think it was only just while we were hiking, we read Bill Bryson's just before, and we would never pass comment until we did more miles than he did. It was just an adventure. I always, at one point when I was a kid, we were thinking about moving to America, and
All right.
I missed out on that. So it's always that undone thing, something to chase, something to have an adventure. I think every day is an adventure when you're hiking. You never know what's going to happen.
No.
And you're making it happen. So why not?
Yeah. And did you have the time to do it, by the way? Because, you being European, as you were at the time, you were able to come across for 6 months normally. Was that how long did it actually take you to do the AT?
So this was back before ESTA, so we actually had to go and apply for a proper visa.
All right.
So
All right.
Because we were going to be there that was the easiest way around it.
Right.
So I think we were given 10-year, 6-month visas. So we knew from the date we flew in that we would have had to have finished by at least a day before our visa expired.
Was that a pressure thing or not? Or was it okay for you?
It was okay. I did, because we both have family there. I wanted to finish with sufficient time for us to actually spend time with both my brothers and their families.
Right. Okay.
And that we weren't sure how many miles a day we were going to cover. Because you look at most people, on the average, certainly back then, it was 5-6 months.
Sure.
And we realized, we weren't super fast at all back then. We were just learning how to hike.
Are you now?
Long distance.
Is your in-sync hiking quite fast now?
We used to be very fast, and now we're a little bit older. We just put in hours, so we cover long distance in a day, but it's just by putting in the hours.
Get up early, get in nearly dark when it's nearly dark.
Yeah, and there's just the absolute joy of walking in the dark, seeing the sky change, seeing the stars disappear, and then that beautiful little line, and you're cold, and you're waiting for that warmth, and you're looking forward to your second breakfast, and it's those moments, just that sunrise and sunset, and if you're not getting them both each day, then you're missing out.
I agree with that in many ways. The walking in the dark idea, I do not. It's tough enough for me to stand upright when I'm walking in the daylight. So walking in the dark would be an absolute nightmare to me. Now, what inspired the idea of a yo-yo? Because you said when you were planning this originally and talking with your father, who was going to come and see you, you were only going to go one way on the PCT. So what was the idea of the yo-yo?
So in 2011, so each April before that, when we knew we weren't hiking, we would book a trip, and we ended up doing quite a few Caminos around that time.
All right.
And
With the same one or all different Caminos?
Different ones. So I think that before we got to that year, possibly because we knew 12 or 18 months in advance how our leave worked, we decided, come on, let's just do 400 miles of the PCT. And, because we've been thinking about it now for so long.
Sure.
But we didn't want to start right at the border. So we started at the kickoff, because we were like, no, we're going to save that for when we come and do the whole thing. And, we'll start right at the beginning and, thru-hike.
Of course.
And I think we were 160. We were actually at Paradise Cafe, and this other hiker we sat down at. No, sorry, that was the second time we met him. It was in that
Water Springs?
Warner Springs, that's right. And well, he was talking to you, Darrell. So
Yeah, we were just following this guy, and because you do get a little bit competitive, and I'm not making ground on him, and I'm looking at him, and now we sped up the pace, as Olive said. You can just, when you see somebody in front of you, that it is competitive, but with yourself, you say, well, when will I catch him? If I can catch him. And
I never do
this
that.
guy, this guy
Might look behind me and say, when will he overtake me?
Yeah. And because you want to meet people and you want to chat and you want to have a conversation, who's this guy? And lo and behold, we were keeping pace with him, which I was quite pleased with. But he was an older guy and a little pot belly, but you should never judge a book by its cover, because he was a record holder and a pacemaker for people who had the record for the PCT.
Wow.
And really nice, gregarious guy, and telling us and imparting his wisdom, but without that arrogance, which sometimes you get. And he was saying that his new partner and him were going to hike the PCT next year, and they were going to go from the border, Mexico, up to Canada and back again. And she would be the first woman to have done that. I thought, wow, that's just fantastic. You get to do the hike twice, just get to be the last people on the trail to enjoy it the most. And it just go rattle around in my brain. And on the flight back, I said to Olive, do you know what? We're going to do that. And we're going to spend more time on the trail. And who knows, you might be the first woman.
Were you up for that, Olive, straight away?
yes, I didn't even have to think about it. I had already, having heard the discussion, I thought, oh man, that's just incredible. That just must be such a wonderful thing to be able to do. And as soon as he said it, I was like, yep, okay. And all that meant was each summer, following summer in 2012 and 2013, I was trying to track people and figure out if I saw on the internet whether there was any other females out there that were fast enough to be able to turn around.
Right.
So I think there was one or two in 2013 that I was concerned about. And obviously they didn't,
So you got the competitive gene as well then?
Oh, yes, I definitely have it. But I think that happens when you're one of seven. You're competitive.
I'm guessing it does. Yeah. So interestingly, and I asked this for a guy who did the calendar year Triple Crown. When which is all the three major hikes in 1 year, which seems lunatic to me. When you finish the hike, say from south to north, and you get to the sign, do you celebrate that in itself, or do you regard yourself as only halfway there?
No, we did celebrate it because we had therefore completed our first through hike of the PCT. So
Sure.
It was a big celebration, but it wasn't until, after our 45 minutes with our tequila laced with chimpanzee shots, electrolyte mixed drink, that we started south. And as soon as we took that step, it was, okay, we've got less miles in front of us now, for the first time.
Good thinking.
So that was definitely a big push, and it felt like all the pressure was off at that point. It was so enjoyable, the return journey. It really was. It was, you were seeing everything with different eyes.
Did it feel like a lap of honor or something? You're on the way back.
No, we got to meet and see all these other people that, we had passed, and a lot of people that we tried to hike with and we wanted to spend time with, but we couldn't. And we kept having to come up with more inventive stories about, why we were moving so fast. And I think we stuck with the story about, well, we've only got 90-day visas, so we have to,
Nice.
get up and get back. There's a little bit of leeway in it, so that's kind of where, we were. And we also said that, we'll be walking back down to Snoqualmie Pass because Darrell's aunt and uncle are coming to pick us up. So we have time. So we figured, well, why not? Let's just turn around and walk back to there. And a lot of people thought, oh, that's really cool. And they said, why don't you just walk back, to Seattle. And we said, oh, we might do that.
Oh dear me. And your PCT hike that you did actually, even though you started planning it quite early in 2014, you didn't go to April 2014, was it?
April 2014, yeah.
Right. So how did you prepare for it? Because you've done the AT before, but we get incredibly out of shape unless we stay hiking, don't we? Did you have to physically prepare for the hike in any way?
Well, we both have worked opposite shifts for most of our working career, and we generally have very large dogs who are quite happy to have 2 to 3 hours walk a day. So we would generally have one of those each, and then a longer one. But the winter, when we knew, we were, trying to prepare for this, we were out after and before our working shifts, and for between 2 to 6 hours, trying to train mainly in the rain that whole winter. And that, that's basically, we were squeezing every hour, every minute out of the day, because we were trying to work and then get as much training in as possible.
Right. And when you got out there, I understand you had issues with hunger. Tell us about that and how your logistics have improved over the years, because I'm sure with all the miles you've done, you're a much better hiker now than you were when you did your first steps in 2014. Both of you, in fact.
So we definitely changed things up from the hike on the Appalachian Trail. So I think we have 50 something plus resupply boxes, because I've been a vegan for over 30 years, and Chimp has now been one for 7, I think. So on the PCT he wasn't, but we would mainly eat vegan food, and when he got to town was when he would have things that weren't vegan. But
the animals.
Yes, back then. So everything was considered in nutritional density in the food. So we knew that while hiking in our resupply boxes, the food we had was very good for us and nutritionally sound. It's just obviously when you're out for nearly 7 months, it's very difficult to constantly get enough food in you when you're doing 35 miles a day. So yes, you are. You wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're hungry, especially once we were past the 4-month stage. But it was fine because generally we were getting up at that point anyway. So it wasn't actually keeping you awake; it was making you wake up.
Right. Oh God.
So, but the downside of that is if you're hiking for between 15 and 17 hours a day, then obviously you're needing fuel for that.
Sure. And you're doing this for a long, long time. And I was going to say. But my next question was going to be, what were you getting out of such an ambitious endeavour? But, from what Darrell said earlier, he says he's a better person on trail. Are you a better person as well, Olive? And if you are, do you just prefer yourselves out on the trail than where you are now, at home or wherever you are?
I think
is that your thing?
It's just the simplicity of life on the trail, and the more times you go out, it's we thought we were going to be able to basically put our little hiking career on the back burner and do smaller hikes, and we were just recently at the Triple Crown Awards talking to lots of other hikers who were older than ourselves, and we realized we're not done. We're definitely going to have to try and squeeze in a couple more hikes before things stop working.
Well, I'm actually going across the UK next year to do this Southwest Coast Path, and that for me will be an ambitious endeavour because I'm 71 now, so obviously I'm starting to feel it most certainly. But I got a feeling there's another Camino in me as well, so I'm still hopeful of doing a few other long distance hikes. And when you set out on this trip, that inevitable conversation about what you would do if one of you was unable or simply not want to continue, because this isn't for everybody. And once you set out on a 30,000 to do 30,000 miles, you don't know what's going to happen if one of you falls or one of you just simply doesn't like it after a while. Did you have that conversation, Darrell, before you went out?
Yes, because we had to sacrifice so much. For me personally, it's like a promotion, big pay rise, and all those sorts of things. You're invested, you're there.
Sure.
The hardest part is to get to the start. And after that, it's easy. You're just hiking. And we had a long conversation about what we wanted to achieve, what would happen when one of us got injured. And after all those 30,000 miles plus, we get injured a lot. Mostly me falling over, because I'm always falling over and hurting things. I think we've hiked with cracked ribs, both broken wrists,
Oh my gosh.
dislocated shoulder, fractured pelvis.
Whoa. Fractured pelvis?
Oh, that's not me. I wouldn't hike for that. Olive hiked. That was the CDT yo-yo attempt, and we'd done just under Tearoa, and we were thought about yoing that, but it really wasn't for us. So then we jumped straight to the Florida Trail, and we had to do that in a quick time frame. So it was flat out, and there's a lot of road walking.
Yes.
And I think that was from going into the third thru-hike, a consecutive thru-hike. She was finally diagnosed, it's car crash accidents or ultra athletes. That's where they see the fracture in the pelvis.
Wow.
And didn't know what it was. Continued to hike, but we weren't slow. We wasn't fast enough to do the yo-yo. So we got to the end, and we thought it was going to get better after a couple of months, and still it's not better. So we said, you know what, the best thing for us to do is go and do a hike. So we did another Camino.
Of course it is.
And it's still not better. So eventually we found a specialist that looked after the British Olympic team. And he did some scans and found out that Olive had a fractured pelvis for 2,500 miles.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's a nightmare, really. But you mentioned getting injured, Darrell, and you did get injured, didn't you, on that return on the PCT? What happened?
I had a bulging disc, which kind of impacted on a nerve, and then that meant I couldn't work. I could just about be upright, but you got no power in your legs. You can't put any power through your legs to move. And I was hiding at the back, and Olive's looking at the pace, and she's realized we're not making miles. And then stupidly, I got up in her sight, because normally I'd let her get up and hide and try and crawl up a wall or up a tree or something to get myself back up. And she noticed.
You know, you're meant to be enjoying it out there, don't you? It's meant to be fun, not as painful as you're making it sound now. What did you do though? I mean, once you were injured and she caught you for being injured, what'd you do?
It was tears in my eyes, because she said, "That's it." First of all, we got ourselves into this? How do we get ourselves out?
Sure.
So then it's looking at the maps and trying to work out a way to get out. So Olive come up with a plan, and we're walking along, and I'm just saying, I'm sorry. And I said to her, "Do you think you can hike by yourself?" I said, I'll just go. I'll do whatever it needs to be done, and I'll join you. I'll get myself fixed, and I've been joined. But Olive was thinking that, oh, great, we can go and spend some time with our friends in Hawaii or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But I asked her, and you can fill in, Olive.
Well, yeah, I had completely switched off at that point, because I was thinking, this is great. We don't have to be back in work for over 3 months. Let's go and spend time with our friends in Hawaii. Let's go and do some other stuff. So I wasn't thinking... I thought that was over, and I had moved on in a very short period of time, like a couple of minutes maybe.
Yes.
I was already thinking about, okay, this is in a way great, because we can do all these other things. And then when he said that, I thought, yeah, of course I can't stop. If there's a way for me to keep going, I've got to hear. I should at least try. So that's exactly what we did. He picked up a car, and he ended up meeting me, at various different points around the roads. And it was a car for a week initially, to see while he was getting various amounts of treatment. And then he said, I'll continue it for a week, and that will get me to the end of Oregon, and I said, either you're well enough to hike with me through California, or that really is it. I said, there is no point in me continuing like this, because this is not working.
Right.
So yeah, he finally got to see, I don't know, the 15th or 16th person who kind of gave him a proper diagnosis and told him that he needed an operation, wouldn't be able to hike. And they looked at each other, and I think Darrell said he was going to, and he said, okay, well then this is what you need to do.
Which
so
was
he
what?
rejoined.
So
I had to walk in a certain way?
No, I had to pack my backpack solid. So it was a big mass. And then I had to strap myself in tight and take a lot of painkillers. I took too many painkillers. I was hiding them from Olive as well. But
By the way, for a couple who are so together, you do tend to hide a bit from each other, don't you, every now and then?
Oh, well, you do. You've got to have your secrets. But it is just when you're injured and you're around other hikers and you just look at how they move and how beautiful it is, and you don't give it a second thought. And the minute you can't move in that way, it's the world. It's like the world ending.
Sure,
so you do anything you can to be back there, and you miss it, and you're missing it, and you're saying, well, I'm missing those miles. We went back and did those miles, or majority of them for me. But you do anything to be back. And that's what the guy, he knew he was a hiker as well. And he knew that I'll be in the morning, I'll be out hiking. So he said, well, this is what you just got to strap yourself in and see how it goes.
So how many more miles were there to go at that stage when you got back on?
1,700 at all of California. So he rejoined at Ashland.
Oh my God. So were you okay? But you strapped yourself in. Was it painful most of the rest of the way then?
Yes, and it's most probably more painful for Olive because the pace is slow, and she has to do everything for me. She has to put the tent up. She's got to put everything. I walk and then I lay down.
Excellent.
She has to do everything. So it's not just hiking.
It's like a guided tour.
It's then doing everything for me as well as doing the miles.
His own personal Sherpa.
There you go. How about that? But you made it.
Yeah.
A total of about 5,300 miles in 195 days. Works out to more than a marathon a day. What did that do to you physically? You get fitter, you get healthier. I'm sure you're happier and so on, but it is wearing, isn't it? 5,000 miles is wearing about 7 months, less than 7 months.
Oh, absolutely. And it takes a while for you to replenish, your body and everything else to what would be deemed like a healthy existence, I guess. The first thing that I really wanted to do was to not get up at 2:30 in the morning. And then you have one morning like that, and then the next morning rolls around and you're awake and you feel like I should be up. I really should be up. I don't have to do 35 miles, but I really need to be up. I started missing not seeing the sunrises.
Sure.
So yeah, everything hurts at that point anyway. So it's making an assessment if anything is really broken hurt, or is it just sore from a little bit of abuse?
It's a lot of abuse. I mean, physically, I found it incredibly wearing on my body. Certainly, I lost a lot of weight. There's not much of either of you really. So you probably don't. Do you lose any more weight, Darrell? Because you're not a big guy, are you?
Oh, you can't see. It's just from my chest up. From here, I've got a little pot belly, and
I don't believe that.
I know when my jeans get tight, it's time to go on another hike. And you do. I've lost a lot of muscle mass on my top of half of my body.
Sure.
But the big takeaway, going back to your previous question, is the minute you stop, it's like for me, it's like grief. It's a loss. Is how do you replace that? And I've read quite a few articles and heard quite a few people speaking about post-trail depression. And the more hikes you do, the more that impacts your life. And I can see it in myself, and I can see it in Olive, and it's looking to go back and replace that.
It's a bit like you both feel that way, though, isn't it? Really, because it would be quite difficult if one of you wanted to pursue the passion, and someone thought, "Well, we're done. I'm done here. I don't want to do any more of this." And is it the hiking you like, or is it the through hiking? Because for me, it's definitely the through hiking, starting in one place and finishing another a long, long way away. What's it like for you? Or for example, do you just go out for, say, 3 or 4 days at a time just for the fun of it?
I think there's definitely something special about going out for an extended period of time, because you are responsible for yourself to get from, whether it's 500 miles, 1,000 miles. And I think Darrell mentioned earlier, it's all the little adventures that that you're going to have along the way.
Yes.
So it's definitely the longevity, the being out there as long as possible, is really, I think, what gets into your head and into your brain, and just like turns on so many things that, I mean, you just end up seeing such really small things around you that seem insignificant, but most people will walk past and not even notice. Walking for 4 or 5 days and being able to look backwards and see where you were 5 days ago, and then through the mountaintops. There's something really special about that.
I agree. It's an amazing feeling to have that. You look behind you and say, "I've been over that," which is just
and you
incredible.
Yourself got you there. Your legs, you dragged yourself there.
Absolutely.
You got your food.
And then you did the CDT yo-yo, which is even more daunting because that seems to be a bit longer. And then in 21, you did the AT yo-yo again. Well, you'd already done the AT once before, but you did a yo-yo then. That's right, yeah. How long did that one take you, the AT?
Was it 100? I think we started the end of April and finished, I think, the 18th of November. We weren't...
You are bloody fast. You must be to do that.
We weren't actually pushing on that one. We had more time to do it. And it started out as... we had intern jobs in Canada that we were trying to get across the border to, but of course it was still COVID. And having what we felt sat on our butts all winter time, having finished the CDT yo-yo, we figured that, oh my God, we're going to be working on a farm here, an organic farm, and he's going to be expecting us to put in long days. So maybe we should go and do like 5,000 miles on the AT. And by that point, we should be able to cross the border. They'll have opened up the things and we should get in. And that was kind of how the AT started, because we had already said we wouldn't do it for a while. We were going to do it like in 6 or 7 years' time.
Right.
So obviously we got to Harper's Ferry and there was no signs on the horizon that the border was going to be open. So we said, well, we might as well keep hiking. And I guess that means we've got this far, we're going to do the yo-yo this year.
Silly not to.
There wasn't as much pressure on that because lots of people have obviously yo-yoed the AT. So I didn't feel that there was any pressure on to do that. It was only pressure that I was putting on myself because it would then be my third.
Sure. Yeah. It's remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable to me that you guys have done so much. And I suppose it begs the question, has long distance hiking become your addiction, your compulsion, your hobby? What actually is it for you now? And are you enjoying it as much now, or if not more now than you used to?
I'm enjoying it more now than I ever did, but I always got a lot out of it. I might bitch and moan and swear.
Which apparently you do, self-confessed.
While doing it.
Yeah.
I do.
Because you just did.
But I'm enjoying it more and more. And I had a conversation with somebody who knew compulsion and addiction. It's a compulsion, definitely a compulsion. And you just want to get back to it. And so you're trying to find, no, it's not justification, it is a framework. What's the next framework to be out there for a long time? And that's what you're looking for all the time.
Yeah. it's something I don't think anybody who hasn't done it, and you've done much more than I have, obviously, but I think you've got to have been out there to understand what it feels like to be out there. And you know, that there is no substitute for getting out there. And having done these 3 epic hikes and yo-yoed them, which one was your favourite, both of you? Or is it the same answer?
That'd be the same answer, I think. I know which one I'm proudest of, and I know previously which ones we would have said was the most.
Well, tell us those first, then I'll ask the question in a different way then.
Olive will answer them because it's exactly the same.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I think before I yo-yoed the CDT, I would have said that the PCT was my favorite hike.
Right.
But I think, as Darrell was saying, I think we probably are proudest of the CDT yo-yo because it
Right.
was, it's such an incredibly hard hike in comparison to
I'm sure.
the AT, and we definitely weren't fast on it.
It's a logistical challenge as much as anything, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. But the minute you take that first step, all the planning that you think you may have done will probably be going out the window, and you just have to keep adjusting and catch up with wherever it's throwing you in the next 5-10 days, whether it be weather, fires, getting food, needing extra food, or something's broken. So it's dealing with the logistics of all those other challenges that are presenting themselves as you're hiking. But you have the time to consider them because you're not dealing with all of the rest of the noise is going on. We had some friends recently who just hiked the Camino from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and in helping them, get up and running and get their training done, they were concerned that in the run-up to it, they hadn't actually done enough training in the previous weeks. And I said, once you start, everything, you're only going to think about hiking, and then it's food and shelter and out there walking.
Very simple.
All of the things exactly that you're trying to do while you're training, you no longer have all those complexities.
Yeah.
So it feels simple.
Yeah. And if there was one
the CDT.
And if there was one hike, someone said to you, right, you've got to stop all this messing around with all these hikes all over the world. If there was one hike you could do to the end of your days, or end of your hiking days, what would it be? That may be a different answer.
You would answer that?
No, for me, it would be the CDT. It's those wide open spaces that you feel lost in. You feel so insignificant, but so powerful. You look, as you mentioned, you see what you can achieve, how strong everybody is, and it's in everybody. And if I wish I could take everybody I loved with me along the way for them to see that and experience it. And lots of people listening would concur. It's just getting out there and doing it and seeing what can be achieved. We're a lot more resilient than we give ourselves credit for.
Would that be the same answer for you, Olive?
Yes, and it's pretty much for the same reasons. It's the remoteness of it, the fact that you can be out for such a long period without having to go into towns, and you're just relying on yourself and being able to just see, the beauty, whether it's harsh beauty of nature.
Sure.
It gets into your soul, I think, and
So what is next? We're now speaking at the end of 2023. Have you got plans for 24?
We're going to do the Camino Levante in next year.
Camino?
Levante.
Where's that?
It starts in Valencia, in
All right,
Spain.
okay, nice.
And outskirts of Madrid, and obviously finished up in Santiago.
Right.
And then at the end of next year, we're planning on doing the Arizona Trail.
Oh, yeah, great. Well, look, you got, as I said earlier on, the amount of hiking you've done is it's exhausting to even think about it, but you look terribly relaxed and happy with it, so it's all good. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story, and I apologise for screwing up last time, but we had a slightly different conversation this time as well, which I kind of like. Yeah. Okay, guys, well, good to speak to you, okay?
And you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Cheers then.
Bye.
Bye. Aren't they a remarkably matter-of-fact together couple who love to hike with one another? Unfortunately, the recording not only missed the first minute or two, but it also decided to record very quietly. I hope it didn't spoil your enjoyment of their epic adventures. You've really got to love backpacking to turn around at the end of a through hike and head back the way you've come. I couldn't ever imagine doing that as long as I lived. And I loved Darrell's answer when I asked him whether or not it was an addiction, etc. He'd clearly thought about it and landed on the perfect answer for him. Again, I'm sorry about the sound, but I didn't want to lose the opportunity of bringing those two to you, so I think it was well worthwhile. Now, I know it's late notice, but if you happen to be in Florida this weekend, why not head over to Hankong? I'll be there. I'm staying overnight in my hammock on Friday, so please drop by and say hello if you can get there. Thanks as ever goes to our great donors, with Lisa Rana, Brian Helton Jr., Natisha Webb, Jeffrey Breeden, and a new monthly donor, David Sansi. We also had a generous gift from my buddy, Andrew Cohen. Thanks, everybody. Love you. Now, with more technical difficulties, here's our first AT thru-hike completion from our Mighty Blue Class of 23. Here's Mark Carpenter to reflect upon his successful journey that he completed a couple of months ago. So we're back on with the first of our completers this year, Mark Carpenter. Hey, Mark, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great.
You look so ridiculously well, by the way, but you've had longer time to recover. You've had longer time to recover than the others, I guess. So let's start with a few facts and figures. So, what were your dates and how long were you actually out on trail?
Well, I started on March 2nd, and I finished on September 12th.
So you did your 6 months, about 6 months and a week. So yeah. How do you feel about that? I mean, in terms of 6 months, that's a long time to be away, isn't it? What did it feel like? A long time?
It did feel like a long time. I was kind of looking back a little bit, kind of breaking down how many nights I spent in my tent and at a hotel or hostel and 0 days. So, and wow, it's a long time.
And it's not cheap either, is it? It does add up. No. Especially if you stay in hotels.
That's true. So true.
And the thing between shelters and tents and hostels and so on, did you stay in shelters much at all, or was that something you'd only stay in when it was raining?
I only stayed in there a few nights, kind of really right out of the gate. I stayed in there, and then I realized I didn't like the shelters. Except when it was raining, hard rain.
Very helpful then, certainly. Yeah. Stops you packing up a wet tent. And of course, I followed you on Facebook where you gave really detailed accounts of where you were. But of course, your Facebook was behind where you actually were quite a way. That sort of journaling, which was quite extensive, you did quite a bit, didn't you? What was that like for you? Did you find that an onerous thing or an important thing because a lot of people were following you?
Well, I liked at the beginning. It was good to journal and share, and I really appreciated when people made comments or provided some feedback. And
at least you know someone's listening or reading.
Yeah, so true, right? But then it became a bit of a chore. I will say, a bit of a chore to try to keep up. So I did get way behind.
But what you have, though, is a really great record of your journey. And, I'm sure you're now aware that now you've done this, it's not easy to stay in touch, as it were, is it? It's not easy to keep on top of where you were at a certain time and so on. I think it's great to have a record of it when you get out there. And you've got tons of pictures, haven't you, as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In fact, that's one thing that I've been doing since I got home. And I took over 6,000 pictures.
6,000?
I did. I did. And so I've been trying to organize some of those pictures, of course, delete some as well. And that's definitely keeping me busy. I'm still working on that project.
So now you're home. How reading from your journal, actually the other day, a recent one that you wrote, you said something about, it's been easy to get back into your old life in many ways, or something like that. Are you a person who can compartmentalize, or is this something that you did that and it's done, it's over, you're not going to do it again, or does it still stick with you, the whole experience?
Well, a couple of things. For one, as a person, I'm pretty adaptable. to my environment.
Sure.
But also, I really slowed down on how I actually posted the journaling and just the finishing up with the stats and my final post, because part of me didn't want to finish, didn't want to let it go.
Interesting.
And yeah, I'm still kind of hanging on to it because I know you've made comments, but you can only talk about it for a
3
while,
weeks.
and people
3 weeks. 3 weeks only, because they just say,
Right.
for God's sake, when you have a comment that's something to do with anything other than your hike.
Right. Well, I'm trying to hang on to it, and I'm going back through the pictures. Also, kind of reading back what I journaled
Sure.
as well, and then I have maintained contact with some of the people I met on the trail.
Nice.
And then, like the guy that I started hiking with, he's planning on going back out February 12th. So we've been kind of communicating as well. So I'm still hanging on to the trail.
Yeah, it'll never let you go. Once you get sucked into it, it will never let you go. Has your wife and your family noticed changes in you at all?
If so, they haven't said. But I do believe that
because they don't want to talk about the trail.
You're probably right. Yeah, exactly. I do find that I'm much more patient. I thought I was a patient person, but I think I've taken it to another level where when things don't go my way or there's an issue, just like on the trail, you got to deal with it. You can't ignore it. So you just take a breath and
that's right, and move on. And funny enough, that manifests itself to me when I fell regularly on the trail. I'd always call out the number of my fall, but I always thought to myself, I've got two options. I can stay here, in which case I'll die because you just stay there, nothing's going to happen, or I get up and go forward, because they're the only options you have, aren't they? And I love that, and that is to do with the patience, I think, where you accept what's in front of you and you have to face that there. There's no point in wondering where you fell on the floor. Just get on and get up and get on. As long as you're not dead, you're fine. You keep going.
Right. And then when you get to where you're going to set up camp, you got to take the steps.
Absolutely.
Set up your tent, prepare your sleeping arrangement, and then you got to eat.
Yeah. Then you got to hang your. Did you hang your food, by the way? Are you a person who hang your food?
I started with the bear can.
Oh, right.
Then I went to the earth sack.
All right. So that's a pretty convenient thing to have, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was it attacked at all? The other sack?
Just the one issue where I got lazy and hung it too low, and a raccoon started fighting me for my food.
Oh, it's nightmare.
No,
And talking about food, did you have a favourite on the trail? Because most of us have developed something we really like out there, and also something we really hate. So, what's things you hate and what things you like?
I think my go-to was some of the instant mashed potatoes, and then I would supplement that with some, like a Walmart would sell the pulled pork, or some chicken.
Get you, or chef of the year.
Yeah, right. So that was rather filling. I think, like in the comments like you made, I did get tired of that oatmeal really quick.
No shit.
I tried. I said, "Oh, well, I love oatmeal, not for very long."
Yeah, it's those little packets the tiny little packets I can't stand. So some of the other bigger ones, the freeze-dried ones, which are much more substantive. I kind of like that, some of those, but really oatmeal. And you did it, so there's no reason you would change anything. But on reflection, when you got to the end and thinking back now, I suspect, are there things you might have changed either partway through or at the beginning, or your gear? What are things you might have changed had you ever done it again?
Well, as far as gear, yes, is the short answer. I kind of added and subtracted during my hike. I got rid of things and added things, because I wasn't very experienced, and I was learning from the guy that I was hiking with, also the people around me. I made a lot of changes along the way, but I would say another thing that I would do differently to be better physically prepared.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was, but where I was when I started doing 8 miles to 10 miles a day was really exhausting and challenging.
Yeah.
But by the end, I could knock out 15 to 20
Remarkable.
miles.
Isn't
to
that
feeling-
remarkable? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a difference.
I can't quite remember the time it changed for me. It's probably about 200 miles in from, doing 8s and 9s and 10s maybe, suddenly doing a 13 or a 15. And it felt such a natural progression to me. Did you feel, and I think it's something to do with the rhythm of the hike. You get into that rhythm, you know where you are, by lunchtime you want to do this amount. You get started a bit quicker. I never managed that. And then you get to camp, but you can get that 12, 15, 18-mile days in much easier than you ever imagined you would. Because I know back in Georgia thinking, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do so much stuff. And now you are finished. And one of the purposes, obviously, of this call is to see how you feel now and so on. And you look amazing. As I say, you look really, really well. And how much weight have you lost? Did you lose?
Well, I think overall, I probably lost about 25 pounds. But,
Wow.
So I've probably gained back about 15,
Well,
about 10 pounds.
I used to lose 50. Well, my two, I lost 50 and 60, and I gained back about 75 and 80. So I'm on the way. It's just the start of the new year. I'm on my way down again now, for this year's hike. So on reflection, what are your takeaways from this hike? When you go away from the hike with thinking, okay, that makes a difference. And the patience is a great thing, obviously. But what were your other takeaways you've had?
Well, I think just to accomplish a long time dream of mine, the bucket list item, or very happy that I was able to do it. I mean, there were certainly times where I knew I could do it, but being out there a long time, it was tough mentally, and I just feel like I can take on any challenge and I can complete it. So.
And that
I feel really good about it.
I think it's a really good thing to take away. I feel that as well. And the word you use, the word accomplish, that was the word that's always stuck with me. I accomplished something. In my life, I've started lots of things. I haven't finished them, but I accomplished this, and no one can take that away from you. That's the best bit, isn't it? No one can take it away from you. And obviously, the class of 24 will be going out shortly. Some have already started, I guess. God knows why they would start in January the 2nd, but whatever. So if you could give some tips, what would your main tips be for people when they start looking at this hike and getting out there and doing it?
I would just say, take it and appreciate the views, appreciate the people that you meet, not be in such a hurry. I mean, I met several people on trail that were section hikers, and they would say, boy, you don't act like a thru hiker because you're slowing down and taking a look at things.
Nice.
I guess they ran into other people that were just blowing by the trail, knocking out the miles.
Yeah, that's a real compliment, by the way. Because section hikers have a much tougher job than we do as thru hikers. They got to restart every time, haven't they? And the fact that they notice that in you, you're prepared to stop and sit down and smell the roses, which is important. Well, and a lot of people do start incredibly fast. I had a guy on the show. His first day, he got past Neil's Gap. Wow. He did 42-mile first day.
You missed a lot.
He says he didn't, but it's tough to believe, especially if you start in the winter. They're shorter days as well. So to do 42 miles, you've got to be moving. You really have. Right. So you kind of sort of answered this. My question was going to be, do you miss it? Is it something that you think about most days, or every day, or every minute of every day?
I don't know about every day, but I do think about it, because especially now that I'm really kind of reflecting and going through pictures and some of the posts that I made. And actually, I started reading some other journals that other people had wrote that I had met along the trail.
Nice.
And that was kind of like taking in their views of the same things, the same parts of the trail that I experienced.
So your bucket list is now not necessarily complete, but you've ticked off an item on your bucket list. Were there any other hiking bucket list items, or do you think you're a one and done in terms of a long hike?
Probably one and done, unless I can convince my wife to go with me.
Oh, really?
Which is probably not going to happen.
From what you said before, she's unlikely to want to do that.
No, she needs a comfortable bed, but we have plenty of trips planned. going forward.
That's nice. Well, look, I'm so pleased you could come back on. I'm pleased you finished, obviously. We had 4 thru-hikers finish, including one who plus another one who started last year and finished this year. So our numbers were pretty darn good relative to the overall number. So I'm really pleased we did it. And obviously you, Mary, Joanne and Jessica finished. So that was, 3 women to 1 man. You're the only man we had who finished.
Represent.
There you go. Represent indeed. Okay, man. Well, look, It's been great to talk with you, catch up with you. And if it's okay with you, I might actually do this again in about 6 months' time, see if any reflections have changed.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, man. Well, look,
I just want to say a shout out to Jessica for sticking in there and getting it done.
Yeah. Well, love you, talk to you. Okay, you take it easy, and we will catch up again about 6 months. Well, probably after I get back from the UK. That'd be kind of nice then. Take it easy, okay? Cheers. He settled back down to life after the trail. Doesn't seem to be suffering some of the regular difficulties that many of us have when we return to our lives. I'm not sure if Mark shared his Facebook updates, but they are excellent, and several of his 6,000 pictures are there. So try to friend him. So that's it, guys. I should have mentioned that Dana is suffering from a kidney stone that is apparently more than twice the size of the type you can pass normally, so to speak. She'll be having the removal op next week. Before then, I think I'll make sure that show isn't left until the last minute. I'll see you next week.